This week on Whiteboard Episodes, we're talking about college summer baseball and what you want to get out of it. So this is something that I definitely dealt with a few years when I was in college. One part of it was because I wasn't very good. And two, it's just something that's becoming more and more prevalent. It seems like after COVID, trying to figure out, hey, maybe there are some different options in what you're trying to, what the end goal of your summer baseball is for you. And that's going to depend on a lot of things, what school you're currently at, if it's like a JUCO or a four-year school, where you are age-wise, where you are skill-wise, chance to get drafted, all those types of things. So I think it really comes down to the question of improving versus experience. And we'll dive into the two different kind of ideas that we have now for college summer baseball, which is more of a traditional route where you have Coastal Plains, Cape Cod, Northwoods, all, New England League, all those kind of your normal college baseball experiences, along with the other hundreds of ones sprinkled across the country, or more of a developmental route where we have stuff like P3, Driveline. We do one here now, the CISL, and so some of this will be a little bit biased because we do have a big part in that. And whether you want to develop and actually try to add some skills, or if it's just an experience or traditional setting. So I wanted to go through a list of some pros and cons of each and look at what we're talking about. So, right off the bat, obviously, if you're doing a developmental league, some of those do have actual outdoor on-field games, and then others like ours are indoors, where you're going to be throwing, and then the hitting and the pitching is tracked with something like a hit track. So you're getting results, you're getting game time results. It's just not actually on the field. It's just more hitter versus pitcher. If you are terrible at holding runners on base and you're a pitcher, the traditional route's more the route to go. Like, you need to be on field. You can't be having a 2-1 to home plate or something ridiculous, 1-8. You need to learn how to hold those guys on base. I think that's a very small percentage of people. My answer to you, if you're that bad holding runners on, is kind of like more of these other things. Can we improve some of those other things to keep people off base? And can you also just be a little bit more of an athlete? If you're that ridiculously slow, there's probably some other limiting factors as well. And I would guess you're just not that good of a pitcher because you're not that good of an athlete. But so some of the other things we look at is, for the experience of playing on a summer baseball team. It's different than school, anywhere from travel to Legion to these college baseball teams. It can be a lot of fun. You're moving somewhere that's usually a little bit different than what you're exposed to in the country. So it's a new area, it's a new team. You're playing with guys from all over the country from different schools, getting to meet a lot of different people. And then also, if you're with like a host family, getting to meet some different families, which could lead to connections down the road. So as an experience standpoint, that's definitely a good way to go. Also, for instance, in my personal experience, between my junior and senior in college, I decided not to play summer baseball. I wanted to go home and train, and I was coming off a very bad junior year, wanted to get better, and give my arm a rest. Arm was hanging a little bit, and it's something that I really regret. I would much rather have that summer back to look at getting innings and just facing hitters and playing baseball and enjoying playing baseball. We all have a limited number of games, and that's something that for me would have been better on the field, would have been playing those games, and something that I probably would look back on with a little bit different experience. But hindsight's always 20/20. The other questions I have for should you play in a traditional summer league would be, is your level of play for the summer league that you're going to greater than or equal to the level of play at your school? If you're at a high-level D1 school and you're going to just kind of like an average or okay summer league, and you're not going to be playing against guys that are your level, it doesn't make sense to do it. You're not going to improve yourself. You have a chance of making yourself worse because you could possibly get away with mistakes because you're more physically gifted than other guys. And so by doing these, getting away with these mistakes, you're not actually making yourself better. Do you have a chance to be scouted? If you have a chance to play in the Cape Cod League, I don't think there's anyone in the country that would tell you not to do that. That's an incredible experience for a number of reasons, but the main one being you're going to be heavily scouted. If you're a guy that needs to be seen over and over again because you might not be the flashiest player, but you're really, really solid at everything across the board, then playing in something in a summer league where there's going to be scouts would be a really good chance for you to get exposure, along with the 56 games you're going to get during your college baseball season. Who's on the coaching staff? One of my roommates, a really good friend of mine, went up to New England. He had an ex-major leaguer as his pitching coach. He said he learned more that summer from that particular pitching coach than he had pretty much his entire life. It changed the way that he went about things next season, and he ended up getting drafted, and it changed the way that he approached baseball during his professional career, and taught him a lot of tricks and tips that he would not get from someone that didn't have that experience. So being around some of those guys in that setting can give you some exposure there. Again, this goes to like a higher, that was New England League for him particularly. Most of the coaches, though, I would say probably aren't at that level. And that's not a knock on all the summer coaches around. It's just there's very few ex-major leaguers in the world. So having someone that has that knowledge and that mindset is probably not going to be, you're going to come across something if you play in some random league that gets thrown together in the backwoods of North Carolina, for instance. When we look at more of the developmental route of are you actually looking to improve or add something, or improve your body or whatever, make yourself more of a physical presence on the field, then we're looking more in like the developmental way to go. So first, number one, add or improve a skill. If you have a good fastball and your breaking ball is terrible, then going and throwing a terrible breaking ball continuously through the summer is not going to help you get better. Getting somewhere where they have some type of TrackMan, Rapsodo, tracking device, and you're actually going to be getting instruction and constant feedback on what that pitch is doing. And if it's just like, hey, I'm throwing a bunch of cement mixers and for some reason some guys are swinging through it and it's more of a luck thing, versus, hey, I'm throwing a pitch that has the horizontal break and the vertical break that I want now, and this is a pitch that should profile to get guys out because it matches up well with my stuff. Those are obviously very different things, and you cannot get the analytical part of it. So I already have that down before. Number 4, you can't get the analytical part of it playing in a traditional summer league. If you're doing something like the CISL, where you have a Rapsodo up every pitch, then you're getting feedback from every single pitch you throw during the summer, and you're understanding, what your stuff does every time, so you're becoming more consistent with your stuff, and you should be able to improve those individual pitches. Improving physically, is that something you need to do? I mean, there's a huge stress across the board, which is awesome from everyone now, of being bigger, faster, stronger. It's very hard, again, speaking from personal experience and from all the other baseball players I work with, it's very hard to improve physically in more of a traditional league. I believe that there are some leagues now like Cape Cod that have a strength coach with each team, assigned to each team, or if you're with like Team USA, they have a strength conditioning coach assigned to the actual team. So you may be improving physically in those circumstances. Again, those two to me are outliers, where definitely go do those if you're that good and you have the chance to play in either of those opportunities. But most of the time you're not going to improve physically. If you do something that's like a developmental, where it's in a facility, and you're able to face hitters, you should have the strength conditioning part with that, and you're able to work on things like hip mobility, overall strength. There might be a lack of rotation, thoracic extension, a number of problems that are kind of limiting you either from a velocity standpoint or from being consistent in throwing strikes. Big thing here probably should be number 1, do you need to add velocity? We've talked about in the few weeks before, no one throws hard enough now. You watch a game and it can be the middle of July and someone trots out somebody they just called up from AAA, some dude you've never heard of before, and the guy in the major leagues now, and he sits 99, and you're like, what's going on? Like, this doesn't make sense. And then he throws a slider, it's 92, and it seems like it drops off the table, or has this like 30 inches of sweeping vertical break or sweeping horizontal break. So adding velocity, and I said this before in the last couple of weeks, velocity is the best correlation, has the best correlation of success, or AKA getting outs, over any other metric. So, I mean, again, pretty much everyone needs to add velocity these days. Are you able to combine, or will it help you to combine analytical and actual results? Again, as I mentioned kind of in the adding skill thing, you can go to a summer league and throw against hitters and you see their reaction to pitches, which is very valuable. And I always tell people it should be something you mix with the analytics. You should not just try to create some pitch in the lab that's awesome on paper. You may be tipping it. There may be some things that are being seen when you try to grip it, and you're not getting that feedback if you're not facing hitters live. If you're doing something developmental where you're seeing those live hitters and you can mix that with the analytical report you're getting back from something like a pitch design thing or working on a breaking ball, then you can combine the two, and that should help you become the best pitcher possible. Where here, you're just going off of reactions from hitters. And again, sometimes when you're looking at just the reaction, you can throw a cement mixer down the middle and the guy swings through it because he takes a daddy hack, and maybe that happens a couple of times and you think that you're doing well with your slider, as opposed to seeing something where it's profiling like a really bad fastball, analytically speaking. So that's something that we want to get, that we want to take away from more of a developmental approach as well. The last thing, and besides velos, probably I think the biggest thing that we saw this summer doing the CISL is the consistent schedule. With these types of developmental programs, you usually know, or again, I'm speaking more from our side of things because I know what we do. All the pitchers know what day they're going to throw on. They know how many pitches they have, and then they have their workouts and their throwing schedule develop around that. So if you're playing outside, there's always a chance of inclement weather. You have rainouts. You have pitchers that don't throw as well. You know, if you're doing something like this, then usually it's more based off of like a pitch count or a number of hitters they're facing. So you're able to get loose and get ready to go. It's not like, hey, this guy's terrible in the first inning. You thought you were going to throw the seventh, go get loose. Or, hey, you're supposed to throw first in relief today, and then 3 games in a row get rained out and you miss your workouts that day because you think you're going to pitch. So you're missing that aspect of physical development throughout the summer. It's inside, it's consistent, and it allows for the other 6 days that you're not pitching to do everything possible to prepare and to not wear yourself out or overtrain during that time period because you know what's going to happen. So that ended up being a huge advantage for guys that we had that did the CISL with us versus guys that just trained at RSP and did other leagues that were outdoors, and they ended up missing, like 30% of their workouts throughout the summer because of the games getting rained out and being rescheduled and shuffled around. So this is just something I think it's going to be moving in the direction a lot more into the developmental aspect. You should be, if it's done right, should be able to get as much of the gameplay out of it and kind of get all the benefits besides something like specifically holding runners on or something. And yes, that is part of the game and it's important for pitchers to be able to do. But I think every pitching coach would rather have someone that has 2 really good pitches as opposed to someone that does a 1-2 to the plate and is really good at holding runners on and has a decent fastball and a bad breaking ball. So, looking at as a college baseball player, look at your choices for the summer, see where you are in your playing career, what you're trying to accomplish for that summer specifically, what you're trying to accomplish throughout your entire baseball career, where you want to end up one day, and that should help you make these decisions. Again, if it's something where you just finished your junior year, you have 1 more year to play, then playing more games might be the right answer. If you're a freshman that has a chance to get drafted, after junior year, and may just need to tweak 1 or 2 things to get to that position, doing something developmentally would be the way to go. I think that the developmental aspect is going to be a lot better for majority of the guys, especially in the next few years as these leagues get better and better, and as they fine tune some things. I think that the more traditional leagues are going to be obsolete, and I think the developmental leagues is the right call for a lot of people. So again, a little bias on my point, but from a player, and what we're trying to do in this facility is help guys with things that we wanted when we were playing, and that's why we're leaning more towards the developmental league. So if you have any specific questions about yourself or anything else that's going on with any outstanding circumstances around summer baseball, please leave a comment, send an email, however you can get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to help and answer your questions.